Have you ever sat at the kitchen table, staring at your phone, waiting for a call or a message from one of your children, and it never comes? Or maybe you've been in a conversation with them and suddenly, without warning, you feel dismissed. Like your words didn't carry any weight. It's painful. There's no other word for it. That deep ache in your chest when you feel like the people you raised, the ones you gave everything for, now barely see you. Or worse, treat you like you're a burden. You're not alone. And no, you're not crazy for feeling the way you do. Respect isn't something we stop needing once we retire or once the kids have grown and flown the nest. If anything, we need it more. Not out of pride, but out of love, dignity, and the desire to be seen for the wisdom and worth we carry. The truth is, aging doesn't make us invisible, but society, and sometimes even our own families, can make us feel that way. That's why today, we're going to talk about something so important: how to respond when your children don't show you the respect you deserve. Not with anger, not with guilt trips, but with quiet power, self-respect and strength, because you can shift the dynamic. You can reclaim your voice, and you can still feel fulfilled, with or without their approval. So let's talk about what to do instead of waiting, hoping, or hurting in silence. One of the most powerful shifts you can make, and this might surprise you, is to stop chasing their approval. I know that's a hard one. We're wired to care. We want our children to love us, to value us, to call and say, "Hey Mom, I need your advice," or "Dad, I miss you." And when they don't, the instinct is to try harder. Maybe if I'm more understanding, maybe if I help more, maybe if I say less. But here's the thing, respect doesn't come from being available 24/7. It comes from boundaries, from presence, and from self-worth. The moment you stop bending over backward to win their attention is the moment they start to notice your strength. Not in a manipulative way, but in a way that says, "I love you, but I'm not going to lose myself in trying to fix a one-sided relationship." When you center your energy back on you, your health, your joy, your daily rituals, you send a silent message. I am whole with or without your constant validation, and that changes everything. You stop showing up with your hands out, asking for scraps of affection, and start showing up rooted, calm, and proud. That's attractive energy, even to grown children who've taken you for granted. And with that shift comes the second powerful way to reclaim respect. Start having honest conversations, not emotional outbursts, but clear, grounded moments where you say what you feel. It doesn't have to be dramatic. You don't need to rehearse a speech or get into old arguments. But next time your son interrupts you or your daughter talks down to you, try something simple. Pause and say calmly, "I'm not comfortable with how that sounded." Let that land. Don't over-explain. Don't plead. Just stand in the truth of that one sentence. It may feel strange at first, especially if you've spent years avoiding conflict, but boundaries aren't confrontations, they're invitations. You're showing your children how to treat you, not by raising your voice, but by raising your standards. You'd be amazed at what happens when you begin to calmly speak your truth. It doesn't always change the other person, but it changes you, and that shift in your presence creates ripple effects. Over time, your children will begin to notice. Maybe not immediately, and maybe not perfectly, but they'll start to feel the change in you, and that matters. Sometimes, though, they don't respond how you hoped. Maybe they brush it off, maybe they roll their eyes. That's where the third shift comes in. And it's perhaps the most transformational of all. Stop expecting your children to fulfill every emotional need you have. Yes, they're family. Yes, they're your heart. But they are not responsible for your happiness. That's a tough pill to swallow, especially if you've spent your whole life nurturing them, sacrificing for them, and putting their needs ahead of your own. But here's the truth. When you place your sense of worth solely in their hands, you're giving away your power. And when they drop the ball, it feels like your whole world collapses. So instead, start nurturing your life. Reignite old passions. Try new things. Join a local group or pick up a hobby you abandoned years ago. The point isn't to distract yourself from the pain, it's to rediscover who you are beyond the role of parent. You are more than someone's mom or dad. You are a whole human being with dreams, opinions, stories, and light to share. And when you begin to pour your energy into things that lift you up, not only do you feel stronger, but something else happens. Your children start to see you differently, not as someone waiting for their attention, but as someone living fully. That kind of presence commands respect even without saying a word. Now that we've explored how stepping back from seeking approval, speaking calmly with truth, and reclaiming your own identity can make such a deep difference, let's continue with some of the other powerful ways you can shift these relationships and regain your peace. Because regaining your peace isn't about getting them to suddenly apologize or act the way you wish they would. It's about standing firm in your value, even when others don't recognize it right away. And that brings us to something that's often overlooked: how we speak to ourselves about the situation. It's easy to fall into self-blame. Maybe you found yourself lying awake at night thinking, did I do something wrong? Was I too strict, too soft? Did I fail them somehow? That kind of thinking becomes a quiet, constant pain. But here's what you need to hear. Maybe more than anything else, you did the best you could with the tools you had. You showed up, you cared, you gave your love, even when you were tired, even when you had nothing left. No parent is perfect. But the lack of respect your children may show now isn't a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their own maturity, values, and choices. That distinction matters, because until you make peace with the idea that their behavior isn't always about you, you'll carry the weight of every cold shoulder and missed phone call like it's your fault. And that's simply not fair to you. So here's what to do instead. Practice self-compassion like it's your daily medicine. That might sound soft, but it's a powerful form of emotional strength. When you catch yourself spiraling into guilt or regret, gently remind yourself, I'm learning to let go. I'm choosing peace. I deserve love, even if it's not coming from them right now. Say it out loud if you need to. Write it down. Keep it where you can see it. Because the more you affirm your own dignity, the less you depend on someone else to hand it to you. And from that place of calm strength, you can take the next step, choosing how you show up in the relationship, regardless of how they act. That might sound strange. You might think, why should I keep trying when they're being disrespectful? Shouldn't I just cut them off? That's a personal decision, and no one can make it for you. But what I can tell you is this. Sometimes, what softens a hardened heart isn't more distance, but quiet consistency. That means continuing to show love, not from a place of neediness, but from wholeness. You can still send a kind message. You can still remember their birthday. You can still say, I love you, even if you don't get it back. But only if it comes from strength, not from desperation. There's a huge difference between giving and overgiving. The first comes from confidence. The second comes from fear. And when you give out of fear, fear of losing them, fear of being alone, fear of being unloved, you often get resentment in return. But when you give out of confidence, when you're already grounded in your own worth, you're not trying to earn anything. You're simply being true to yourself. That's incredibly powerful. It also makes space for your children to return to you on their own terms, when they're ready. And if they don't, you haven't lost yourself, trying to chase after something that may never come. You've stayed rooted. That's peace. Now, something that often gets pushed aside, especially among older adults, is the idea of creating new sources of connection and emotional nourishment. It can feel like, well, my kids are supposed to be my family. They should be my people. And while, yes, in an ideal world they would be, you are allowed to create new circles of support. You might not call them family in the traditional sense, but they can be just as meaningful. That could be a neighbor who always makes time for a chat, a friend from church or your walking group, a younger person who values your wisdom, even someone you meet online in a community that shares your interests. These are not second-rate connections. These are lifelines, and when you start showing yourself that you are worthy of being seen, listened to, and cared about by others, something opens up inside. You no longer feel boxed in by your role as a parent. You expand, you evolve. And sometimes, this is the beautiful twist, that very growth is what brings your children back around. When they see you happy, independent, surrounded by joy, they may realize what they've been missing. But even if they don't, you haven't waited to live. You've honored your life now. Respect, after all, begins within. It's not something we beg for. It's something we model in how we treat ourselves, in how we let others treat us, and in how we continue to show up, not as victims of aging or rejection, but as powerful individuals with stories, wisdom, and worth. So if your children aren't showing you the respect you know you deserve, don't shrink. Don't fight to prove anything. Instead, rise into yourself more fully. Speak your truth with calm courage. Let go of what you can't control. Surround yourself with light and choose every single day to respect yourself deeply, unshakably. Next, we'll explore the remaining steps that will help you find closure, reclaim joy, and build a future that feels rich with meaning, because once you've chosen to stand in your self-worth and start creating emotional space for your own peace. The next step is about setting clear boundaries, not to push others away, but to protect your heart and sanity. You see, boundaries aren't walls. They're doors with locks. You decide who comes in, how long they stay, and what kind of energy they bring with them. If your children continue to treat you poorly, speaking with sarcasm, ignoring your calls, only reaching out when they want something, you are allowed to say, "I love you, but I won't be treated this way." It doesn't have to be said with anger. In fact, the most powerful boundaries are calm and clear. You can say, "If you raise your voice at me, I'm going to step away from the conversation." Or, "If I don't hear from you for months, I won't pretend everything's fine the next time you call." This isn't about punishing them. It's about showing them and yourself that your time, your energy, and your heart are valuable. Boundary says, "I still love you, but I love myself too." And here's something else to remember. Boundaries only work if you're willing to keep them. That's where many people struggle, especially parents who feel like they're supposed to always be available, no matter what. But when you hold a boundary, even when it's uncomfortable, you teach others how to treat you. You remind them that your kindness isn't weakness, and your patience isn't permission to be disrespected. Now, this part is tender, and it might hurt, but it's essential. Sometimes the respect you're hoping to receive will never come. Not because you didn't deserve it, but because some people, even our own children, are too wrapped up in their own story to see us clearly. If that's the case, you need to hear this. You are still whole. You are still worthy. You do not need their validation to live a good life. Letting go of that hope can feel like grief. And in many ways, it is. Grieving the relationship you wanted. Grieving the dream of closeness that never came true. But grief, as painful as it is, also clears space. It makes room for new joys to enter. It opens your heart in unexpected places. So don't be afraid to let go. Let go of waiting for the perfect apology. Let go of hoping that they'll finally realize how much you did for them. Let go of the version of the relationship that only exists in your imagination. That doesn't mean you stop loving them. It means you stop losing yourself trying to make them love you the way you need. And when you release that need, something incredible can happen. You reclaim your joy. Joy that isn't dependent on a phone call. Joy that isn't attached to their mood, their behavior, or their approval. Joy that comes from the little things, from a peaceful morning, a blooming flower, a good laugh with someone who sees you. Joy that belongs entirely to you, because life doesn't stop being beautiful just because someone fails to see your beauty. You still have so much left, so many mornings to wake up to, meals to savor, people to meet, sunsets to watch. You still have chapters left to write. And you don't need anyone's permission to start writing them today. Here's what I want you to carry with you from this conversation. Being disrespected by your children is painful, yes, but it doesn't have to define your days. You are allowed to feel hurt. You are allowed to be disappointed, but you are not required to stay stuck in that pain. You are not required to chase people who treat you like an afterthought. You can choose to shift your focus, one small step at a time, toward people who appreciate you, toward habits that bring you calm, toward goals, hobbies, and passions that remind you of who you are beyond the role of mom or dad. You've spent a lifetime giving. Now, it's time to receive. From life itself, from new connections, from your own inner well of strength. You don't need to wait for a perfect family reunion to feel whole. You are whole right now. And every time you choose to treat yourself with dignity and care, you reinforce that truth. So here's what I want you to remember. Your story isn't over. Your value hasn't expired. And respect, the deep, genuine kind, begins with how you see yourself. When you choose self-respect, everything else starts to shift. I'd love to hear from you. Have you gone through something like this? How have you dealt with it? Share your story in the comments. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to give the video a like. And if you want more heartfelt practical advice for living well after 60, hit that subscribe button so we can walk this journey together. You deserve peace. You deserve respect. And most of all, you deserve a life that feels full, no matter what anyone else says. Here's to living with strength, wisdom, and self-love at any age.